It is very easy to get under Donald Trump's skin. This is a weak, a very angry, a very easily triggered man. But to live rent-free in his head is a step above. It is an achievement we have seen from Michelle and Barack Obama, of course, Jasmine Crockett, and the latest person to reach that podium is Pete Buttigieg, who Donald Trump has been attacking nonstop and just did after Pete called out his latest criminal scandal. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, it wasn't just Pete calling out Donald Trump's latest scandal, but also calling out the incompetence at his Department of Transportation that led Donald Trump to lose his mind. So before we get into Trump's meltdown, let's check out what Sean Duffy had to say about Pete Buttigieg and his reaction.
In the system. So let's talk about what the Trump administration is doing moving forward to fix the problems that were left to us from the Biden-Buttigieg administration.
Your reaction to the Trump administration blaming you for Newark?
You know, when you're the Secretary of Transportation, you have a tough job, and your responsibility is to fix tough problems. You don't have time to indulge in trying to point fingers or blame other people. What I can tell you is, you know, we inherited a shrinking air traffic control workforce. We turned it into a growing air traffic control workforce. And my successor's not, of course, asking me for advice, but my advice would be to focus on making sure that it grows and actually delivering the technological change that's needed. We launched the contract to modernize the communications backbone of the FAA, knowing that it wasn't something that could be done in a year or 2 years. If he can achieve an acceleration of that, I will be the first one to be cheering for that. But that takes focus, it takes discipline, it takes integrity. And frankly, there's no time for politics on a mission-critical job like that.
Of course, they're now calling it the Biden-Buttigieg administration. One, like, that's a bad thing. So the Biden-Buttigieg administration, their great crime was making sure planes didn't crash and making the biggest investment we've ever seen in American infrastructure. That's supposed to be spun somehow as this bad thing. That's what you're attacking Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden for. Yeah, I think you're going to have to check that message testing, Sean Duffy, because it's not really working out. It's just not really going to fly for you. And speaking of flying, which seems to be the biggest topic of conversation around scandals for this administration, Buttigieg not only called out Donald Trump's giant bribe from Qatar, but also made sure to call out the other way that he's screwing over working people.
Look, everybody's talking, including me, talking about the jumbo jet because I'm pissed off about the jumbo jet. But I believe the most important story today is that the numbers started coming back on the budget reconciliation put forward by the congressional Republicans, which last time I checked, literally as we speak, they're marking up in committee and voting on. And it is literally a zero-sum game, because the more they do this, the less there is for that. So yes, I am against the enormous tax cuts for the rich that they are pushing through. But part of why we're against that is we're for taking those dollars and using them to make sure that nobody in this country, no child in this country goes without health insurance, to make sure that no child in this country goes hungry. We heard earlier about that USDA program that my friend and colleague, Secretary Vilsack, had to help make sure that more food goes directly from farms to people who need it. I'm for that. We could do that.
I love what Pete is doing here. These two corruption scandals, these work in concert. The cuts to Medicaid and the corruption scandal from Donald Trump is just an example of what this administration cares about, making sure that Donald Trump is happy, making sure that billionaires are taken care of, making sure that the worst people in the world are being praised by the president, right, at his benefit. That is what this is all about. And clearly it struck a nerve with Trump because he started attacking Pete right here in just a very weird, very, very weird meltdown.
The tree comes down also, by the way. It's so intense. I mean, you see these trees being knocked down like they're being sawed down by a top-of-the-line timberman, like you know who? Sean Duffy. Do you know that Sean Duffy, the head of the Transportation Department, who's working right now on the airports and getting a system because Biden didn't do a thing for 4 years, and Pete Buttigieg was the head, and he goes bicycling to work. He takes a bicycle to work. Can you believe he's running the biggest air system in the world, and he takes a bicycle to work? And they say he's going to run for president. I don't see it. Who knows, right? But I don't see it. But when I look at what they've done, is so horrible what they've done. And the work they did do, they wasted billions of dollars. They tried to hook up air systems to copper, and they tried to hook up copper to glass, and the glass doesn't work with the copper. And they had 30,000 different contractors doing 30,000 jobs. And when they put it all together, they spent billions of dollars. It didn't even come close to working. And we're going to be giving out a brand new system. It's very important. We'll have the best system, and we think we know who that system is, but we have a lot of...
I don't know why he keeps coming back to the bicycle thing. Do we think Trump knows how to ride a bicycle? Do we think that a bicycle can support... I don't want to be body shaming here, but, can he fully fit? Can he fully fit on a bicycle? Is that why he's so upset? Is this more of a bicycle thing than a Buttigieg thing? I don't know. But such a strange attack. Again, it goes to show, what are they going to go after him for? His success as Secretary of Transportation? I don't know. They can't say he's wrong about the cuts to Medicaid and the damage that Donald Trump and his administration will do to millions of Americans, the harm that will be inflicted from the administration that claimed to want to make America healthy again. And I talked all about that, and an element of RFK Jr.'s corruption that no one is talking about for some reason with Congressman Jack Cocchiarella. And I want you to take a look at that interview right here.
Congressman, you were just a part of a marathon hearing about Republicans' cuts to Medicaid, and you would think in that time they would be able to give a reason why they are stealing health care away from so many Americans. I don't really think they did. Did they come up with a reason, or is it just that they prefer a handful of billionaires to 13.7 million Americans who are losing their health care?
The hearing itself lasted 26 hours, but actually this has been a 15-year fight. Yeah. And the core fight has been Democrats try to extend access to healthcare. We do it through Obamacare. We do it through Medicaid. We want to make sure that if you're a mom, your kids get access to a primary care physician. And 40% of kids in this country, for example, use Medicaid. We want to make sure that if you need at-home care as a senior citizen, you can have the dignity and the independence of a personal care attendant in your later years. And Republicans try to take away healthcare. They try to take away healthcare, one, because they just simply believe that some people don't deserve healthcare, and two, because they try to use it to pay for tax cuts for people who don't need tax cuts. That is the core fight that we're having right now. It has been crystallized in this 26-hour hearing, but it's really a 15-year battle.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of another underlying layer to that. Of course, the billionaire aspect is always key for Republicans, but there's a bit of corruption in there as well, because of course there is. And you talked about this with RFK Jr. How would these potential cuts, in your mind, impact or work to serve his kind of band of freaks in the conspiracy space who want to pitch an alternative to actual health care that really just gets them rich at the end of the day?
Without doubt, they ladled pay to play throughout this bill. Let me give you a few examples. One, if you're an oil and gas company, you can pay $10 million to get a permit without having to go through any type of environmental or public health review. That's it. $10 million, probably paid in Trump meme coin, candidly, and you get that permit. Number two, they gave $500 million to the Department of Commerce to give out AI contracts. Jack, I'll let you guess who's going to get those AI contracts. His name rhymes with Elon Tusk. Okay? And then number three, they basically made RFK the person who gets to decide who's eligible for healthcare in the states. Now, the challenge with that is, one, RFK literally doesn't know what Medicaid is. We saw that in his confirmation hearings in the Senate, had no clue what it was. This is a program that insures 70 million Americans. Number two, his top henchman, the guy who actually really does understand healthcare, happens to run a business on the side that is regulated and reimbursed by, you guessed it, Medicaid.
Yep.
This guy became a billionaire off of selling services to Medicaid, which, Jack, I didn't even know that was possible. Medicaid is supposed to be an insurance program for the poor. I'm not clear how you become a billionaire selling to it, but he managed it. And now he's the guy who has business interests in what Medicaid decides, who gets to determine who is eligible for his services. And I asked the Republicans quite simply, I was like, hey, do you want to ask any questions about that? Like, maybe, I don't know, maybe we should just check in with RFK to see if he's got a plan for how he's going to hook up his buddies. And the Republicans said, no, we don't think that this has any issue whatsoever. They shot down my proposed amendment.
Because of course not. But one question they did want to ask, and I can't even remember which of your Republican colleagues it was, because honestly, I just don't like to. But asked, well, when Joe Biden was vice president, he threw out some whataboutism. Again, I can barely remember. It was a long, long hearing, and I just got so sick and tired of these people. They're more willing to bring up President Biden when he was vice president than RFK Jr. as HHS secretary right now. But your response is what I remembered, which was, are we seriously going to do this? Are these the questions that you're asking? Just wait until your town halls when you actually have to answer these questions. Then you're really not going to be able to rely on your Biden whataboutisms. What do you expect to come out of these out of this hearing specifically in Republican town halls? What do you think the questions that they're going to be asked? Do you think they're going to run away from them? What do you think is next for your colleagues on the right?
First, the public pressure and the public awareness that Democrats have been building with the help from folks like you, it already is having an impact. They have already changed elements of this bill under significant pressure. So I don't want to make Democrats feel like we're screaming into a vacuum. We're not. We're having an impact even in the minority. Number two, though, is these Republicans ultimately are going to have to talk to their voters. Otherwise, their voters will talk to them at the ballot box. And when these voters stand up and they say, I relied on Planned Parenthood for ovarian cancer screening, and now they can't do it because of this bill. Or my dad relies on Medicaid for at-home care, and now I'm taking care of my father, which means I'm not working. Or I had healthcare insurance and I was getting primary care. Now I lost it, so I'm going to the emergency room. When they raise these issues, and the response from the Republicans is, yeah, but Barack Obama wore a tan suit when he traveled overseas. Or yeah, but Hillary Clinton's email server. Come on, right? It's just not going to scrub. Americans have very limited patience for bullshit. And these Republicans are going to be ladling it out, and it's just not going to work.
No, it's not. But one of my big fears with all of this is I always bring up the Russ Vought quote of, I want federal workers to feel traumatized when they come into work. And that's kind of been, the position across government, including with government programs. This administration wants people to think that government has already been broken, but is just continuing to fall apart. And the reason that it is because of them. It's their actions. But how do we get people to remember or to realize or to see that government actually can still work for them, to make sure that people think that when they go to the ballot box, when we ask for their vote pretty soon, it's because we can fix things, that things aren't completely broken, that the government can work to make their lives better? Right. How do we make sure we are continuing to communicate that message when a lot of the time, of course, rightfully so, we're speaking about what they're trying to break?
Jack, I think that's exactly right. And the trap that Democrats have to be cautious of not falling into is we can't be seen as defending the status quo in government, because Americans are frustrated with government. Government could be working better. And so we shouldn't be out there defending the Department of Education. We should be out there defending education, right? That's what people care about. So for example, let's get out there and campaign on and then deliver one-on-one tutoring for every student in this country. 25 million American students are behind grade level on reading and mathematics, okay? Since the pandemic, they have really been struggling. And I'm sure, Jack, you have seen that amongst your own cohort, where the pandemic school closures really taken a toll. And Democrats need to show how we can make it better, right? Republicans are out there freaking out about locker rooms and bathrooms. No one's talking about classrooms. We can be the party that owns that platform and builds confidence that, hey, 50 cents of your tax dollar goes to public education. We'll be the party that can deliver excellence in education.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we want to get real nitty gritty, focus on these issues. What's something that you're not hearing people talk nearly enough about that also paints this positive picture of what democratic governance can look like when it's not undermined by, billionaires, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, all of them? What else do we need to be focusing on that's this aspirational vision that sometimes I feel like we forget about?
Education is an important one. Two other important ones are housing and energy. What helps build inclusive economic growth for the middle class is when housing and energy become cheaper. The Republicans are out there claiming that they're the party of free markets for energy and free enterprise, and we're going to unleash energy dominance. I sit in the subcommittee on energy. I can tell you quite plainly, they are actually quite protectionist and quite captured by the oil and gas lobby. All they want to do is hook up their oil and gas buddies. Democrats can be the party that goes out there and says, we're going to build 5 Hoover Dams worth of nuclear power in the next decade. We're going to expand geothermal and solar and offshore wind, and we're going to make energy abundant and cheap and reliable. Housing, same thing. This country needs probably 5 million more units of housing over the next decade to make it possible for Gen Z to buy a home, right? Gen Z's parents bought a home for like $17 in the 1970s and have been sitting on asset appreciation ever since. It's great for baby boomers, not so hot for the next generation.
Yeah.
And our party needs to be able to demonstrate that we will make housing affordable for people who want to live and work near great jobs.
Yeah, I got to tell you, my generation, especially, my friends, myself, who are graduating right now, aren't feeling fantastic about a Trump economy that is, one, entering a recession, and two, impacting young people even more than most recessions ever would, because generative AI is able to fulfill so many of these jobs that usually you would see young people get, and so it's doubling down on how impacted we are. At the same time, you see Walmart, you see Target, you see these, you see grocery stores saying, well, our prices are about to go up because of Donald Trump's tariffs. What would you say to a young person who feels disaffected right now, who's worried if the job offer that they got is still standing, if they're going to be able to get a job in the coming months? What would you say to them right now about the Trump economy and how we're going to fix what is just this fucked up mess?
The one word that defines the Trump economy is uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
I've been speaking to global investors in big business, to the local chambers of commerce throughout my district, to labor unions, to social service providers, to my constituents themselves. And the one theme that pops up is I can't plan. I can't make hiring decisions. I can't buy capital equipment. I can't sign long-term deals with customers. And that type of uncertainty, it causes like a spasm inside of the economy, and everyone seizes up and stops purchasing things and hunkering down, and that becomes self-fulfilling. This man is talking a good economy into a recession.
Yeah.
And it's so unfair to young Americans who, as you said, are already grappling with Gen AI. And I was looking at a labor economist's publication the other day who was pointing out that the hiring for college-educated workers in fields that are very susceptible to AI, whether it's accounting or financial services or law, is plateauing. We're actually already starting to see the dislocation associated with AI. Now, I don't necessarily think that has to be a doomer scenario. I actually think that people who pair themselves up with these new tools can become enormously productive and creative, and we shouldn't shy away from technology, but we should create certainty around that technology so people can invest in themselves and businesses can invest in their workers for the long term.
Yeah, it's the reason why, like you said just a little earlier, we have to be thinking about this in not a business as usual approach to how we govern, because the business as usual isn't working, and people are not really excited about it, especially as everything is changing around them. We have to make real impactful change. You're certainly doing so. I appreciate the fight. I appreciate you having to be around your Republican colleagues for that long and just holding them to account. So thank you, and thank you for joining us, Congressman.
Take care, Jack.